Good morning and welcome. My name is Duver Rodriguez.
My name is Guerrero.
And today we are going to talk to you about the modes of linguistic communication. First of all, we need to know what a mode of communication is. Well, a mode of communication is the way or the channel in which the communicative intent is expressed. That means that there are several ways of communication. But a mode of communication is not linguistic by itself. It requires some characteristics such as grammar, complexity, and lexical, and tenses, for example.
Therefore, there are three types of linguistic communication. The first one is speaking, in which our speech and hearing organs are involved. The second one is writing, in which relies on a visual representation, and finally we have signing, which depends on tactile or visual representation. So we have now speaking or oral communication. The voice is the most common vehicle of the linguistic communication, being the speech the primary mode of human language. And it seems that during the human species evolution, they had the needs to communicate something, either by demanding directions, either by expressing their feelings, or accomplishing their surviving tasks. So it can be an index that in there it was when the language or the speaking started to be expressed or developed. So we all know that the speaking has a lot of advantage. One of them is that it doesn't matter where the place we are located, because if it's in the darkness or in the clarity, because it needs to be heard but not seen. But it could be it is an obstacle for those people that are deaf. Thank you. And another advantage, or although speaking is something complex which needs written speed and pitch and volume, we can modulate all those aspects aforementioned in order to what we want to reach. So, but in his natural state, speech evaporates and it can be maintained over time. But thanks to technology, because it is allowing us to maintain the voice through films, videos, audio files, among others. So the speaking skills involve the communicative ability, because we can modulate it from in a specific situation in appropriate way. So it means that speaking deserves more attention, because through this ability or skill we can express our thoughts and personalities. So according to some others, for example Bouvier, he says that oral communication expresses idea through the spoken word, and according to A.S.K. Kapoor, oral communication takes place when spoken words are expressed and understanding from and understanding from one person to another.
Well, the second mode of communication, of linguistic communication, is writing. Well, as everything in human species, writing started with the need we need to transmit something to new generations. As the speech didn't proportionate this characteristic, they started to draw things um, and tell stories. These images are known as pictograms or icons. The a specific characteristic of pictograms is that they can transmit the sense of the significance of an image, but they cannot transmit stories. They cannot tell complex stories, such as something that happened in the past or something that is going to happen in the future. So these pictograms started in the caves where cavemen intended to transmit new stories to the new generations. Even though writing is requires more time to be produced, it is easier to understand and faster to understand than speaking. Why? Because it provides a specific sense and a specific context to what the message is intended to be transmitted. Something interesting about the pictograms or icons is that they are evolving over the time, and they, even though the image change, the icon or the visual representation still being the same. For example, we can see the sun, the moon, a bow, or a river. In any language, those icons can be understood. So that is a really good advantage of writing.
Now we have signing. Is This is the third mode of linguistic communication, and it tends to be visible gesture to communicate. So we use visible gesture in order to communicate something, but this signing mode is used more for deaf mute or mute people. So we have two categories: ASL and finger spelling system, better known in Spanish as Braille system. So now we have, sorry, now we have ASLs, which is the main sign language in North America, and which use manual signs in or facial or corporate gestures in order to communicate under a system of grammatical rules. But if we have to take into account that the signing is different or not, it doesn't depend of any spoken language. So the ISLs has a specific combination of grammar rules because different from the speaking, because in speaking or writing the other ones we mentioned um, have a more complexity in combining or in applying grammar rules.
Well, the second way of signing communication is the finger spelling system of the or the Braille system, which appeared also as a need to which appeared also as a solution to a need for blind people who were trying to communicate and who didn't have access to reading systems. So the finger spelling system consists in giving some textures to letters or to words in order for blind people to be able to read them. So how are they going to read those symbols? Symbols. I'm sorry. Those symbols, they are going to read them with their fingers. That means that they are going to place their finger in any symbol they find in the written.
Here, there are like a points in
They
which
are
they
points. They
touch.
have textures to transmit a message. Well, every letter has its own texture with its own path and directions. So the finger spelling system and the ASL system have their own orthographic rules, grammar rules, their own lexical and their own representations for each people. So that means that they are going to have a really complex way to communicate among them or with other people.
That's
Something important about the finger spelling and the ASL is that they are adapted to the context in which they are developed. The ASL system in North America is not going to be the same as the one in Europe or in Asia. The same happens with the finger spelling system for blind people.
But we have to take into account that also in ASL we have three main components. The first one is the position of the hand or hand shape or modulation. The second one is location with respect to the body's the sign body. No, the signer body, and finally half movement. Those are characteristics because Depending on the move of the hand or those all characteristics, the message transmitted
It's going to be different.
is going to be different. So it is important to have the correct movement, the correct hand movement and
the position
other
of the hand also.
Right.
Because for example, in the United States, you say ASL, right? But if you do it in this way or in this way or in this way, it is going to be have a different interpretation.
It
for
will
people.
change the meaning. So thank you very much for
Thank you
watching
for
us
watching us.
and
See you next time.
bye.